afternoon, everyone, and welcome to NCRGEA members, and welcome to today's webinar, Battling the Aging Brain. I am your host, Daryl Davis Fulmer, and today we'll be joined by Lisa Nannini, a consumer engagement professional with Humana. Lisa has been with Humana for more than 3 years. If you have attended one of our district conferences over the past few years, no doubt you have met her as Lisa manned staffed one of the Humana's information tables and also presented at the class that they offered. Before we begin this webinar, however, I want to go over a few items. Each of you has been muted to help ensure the presenter can be heard. And this webinar will be recorded and posted in our YouTube account. We'll also send out an email to everyone with a link to our YouTube account and announce it on our social media sites, as well as post it on our webpage. For those of you who have sent us questions in advance, we submitted them to Lisa, and many of them will be answered during this presentation, and she will talk more about that as she presents. If you think of a question, however, during this presentation, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom page. Lisa will try to respond to you during the webinar, but if not, we will read the questions at the end, as many as we can, so that Lisa can respond. And finally, we sent you a handout. So this is the time to pull it out. And it is not mandatory, but if you have it, please pull it out now. And we are ready to begin. So without further ado, here is Lisa Nannini.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, everybody. Again, my name's Lisa Nannini. I'm a consumer engagement professional with Humana. Now, this presentation was developed by Humana in consultation with clinical staff. So if you have questions today that are medical questions, we definitely want you to direct those to your healthcare provider. I always joke around, I do have opinions. So if you ask me a question, I most likely will give you my opinion on it. However, I am not a doctor. So definitely want to talk to your doctor about that. And we can go on to the next slide. Now, again, what I have to talk about today does not replace professional health care or guidance. So always talk to your doctor. And if you hear anything during today's class that inspires you to make some sort of health or medical change, changing an eating habit or starting an exercise program, always talk to your doctor. And lastly, as a reminder, if you have any questions during today's class, again, you can put them in the Q&A, the question and answer box. I'll try to answer them as I go along. A lot of the questions that were sent prior, some of them I will cover during this class. So I just wanted to let you know that a lot of them on diets, brain activities, things of that nature will be covered in these slides. So just letting you know that those questions are coming up. So, all right. And also, similar to other parts of the body, the human brain tends to become less agile as people get older. That's, why we understand why we're doing this battling the aging brain. And scientists are still trying to unravel many of the mysteries of the brain to help people better understand why age-related changes happen and what can be done about them. Now, in today's class, you'll learn the anatomy of the human brain, including a high-level overview of how it works, how the brain changes with age, and tips to keep your brain healthy, and how to use memory aids. And while we're on that, I'm going to ask Patty, if you don't mind, if you can put in the link for the handout. I do have a couple people that are requesting that from us. Now, the brain is your body's control center, and it controls all human activity. It's responsible for your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and behavior. Your brain has 4 different lobes, which make up the cerebrum. Now, the frontal lobe is responsible for cognitive functions like thinking and planning, as well as problem solving, reasoning, and motor skills like movements. The parietal lobe controls sensory information like temperature, taste, touch, and pain. The temporal lobe is responsible for memory and understanding sounds you hear. And this is also where the hippocampus lies, which it's not shown in the picture, but this is a part of your brain heavily linked to memory formation. And then the occipital lobe manages the brain's visual processing system. So it receives and interprets information from the retinas of the eyes, which I always think is interesting that it's at the very back of the brain, even though we have our eyes at the front, that is where that's located. And then we have the cerebellum, which helps control balance and posture. And it also coordinates voluntary movements, allowing all of the muscles in the body to work together to move gracefully. Now, the cerebellum helps with some cognitive functions, including language as well. And then we have the brainstem, which is made up of the pons and medulla oblongata. Now, that's connected to the spinal cord, and it controls many vital functions like your heart rate, breathing, and blood pressure. Next slide. Now, the aging brain. So, what's normal? So, as you get older, like the rest of your body, you may undergo some normal age-related changes. According to the American Psychological Association, these changes may include the following. So, you may notice like small declines in memory. As people get older, it's common to misplace your keys or your glasses or forget someone's name. Even though these memory lapses are widespread, they can be frightening. Episodic memory may especially suffer. An episodic memory is a memory of an event or episode in your recent or distant past. So, just to give you an example, trying to remember the last time you went out to dinner at a restaurant. It may also include remembering where you parked your car and why you went to the grocery store. So, these are normal small declines in memory. Now, some brain functions may slightly slow down. It may take you longer to process information and learn something new. This is because the speed of learning decreases and reaction time increases. So you may have noticed that the increased reaction time when you're driving, or if you've tried to play a video game with your grandchildren. Now, in addition to your ability to pay attention and ignore distractions, that may also decline slightly. So, just to give you an example, and I have this problem as well, like being in a restaurant. If you're in a restaurant, talking to somebody, trying to have that one on one, but there's all of this other noise going on in the background, and it's like, I'm trying to focus on what you have to say, but you get distracted because of all these other things that are going on around you. That is normal brain issues. That's as we get older, that's normal for us to do. So don't get too concerned about that. We'll become distracted easier with interruptions, and it makes learning and executing tasks more difficult. Oh, next.
We're gonna do the handouts, so bear with me here.
Okay, no problem.
There you go. It's in the chat, folks.
Thank you, Patty. All right, let me go on to the next slide. Now, memory lapses from time to time are usually minor and something to worry about, or, not something to worry about and nothing to worry about. But serious memory loss and confusion are not a normal characteristic of the aging brain. Now, dementia is a general term used to describe a decline in one's ability to think and remember that is so severe that it affects a person's daily life. Now, according to the Alzheimer's Association, symptoms of dementia include being unable to remember recent events. It may be slightly harder to jog your memory of specific instances or events as you get older, but it isn't normal to have a drastic decline in your ability to remember recent happenings. Just to give you an example, so forgetting, you've gone to the same Food Lion for 80 years, and then all of a sudden you don't know how to get to that Food Lion. That's a red flag. That's something that you need to go, okay, this is not normal for me to forget how to get to this location that I go to all the time. Forgetting how to use common objects or words. So, it's normal to occasionally have to search for a word like, what was the name of that ocean animal? The turtle. You know, we all have those moments where it's like that. We have that word right there on the tip of our tongue, but we just can't remember it. That's okay, you know, but it shouldn't happen frequently. Like you shouldn't have that all the time happening. It happens to everybody every once in a while, but if that's an everyday occurrence, that's a red flag. And when we say forgetting how to use a common object or words, another example is, say you have using your handheld can opener. All of a sudden, that's something that you don't know how to use, and you've used that can opener forever. Again, that's not normal brain change. That's something that you want to look into. Getting lost in familiar locations, losing the sense of place and or time is a common sign of dementia. It isn't normal to suddenly forget how to get home from the grocery store or how to get to the grocery store. Being unable to follow directions. A person with dementia may have a hard time doing routine tasks. So think of like balancing a checkbook or following a set of instructions like a recipe that you've done forever. That you can't follow that recipe or don't remember the recipe that you've known forever that was, grandma's secret recipe that you're the last person that knew. That's something to, be concerned about. A decline in ability to socialize. Aging shouldn't have a drastic effect on your social skills. So it isn't normal to lose interest in all social activities or have a hard time talking or holding a conversation. And then a big one to me, these are all big things, but neglecting your safety, your hygiene and nutrition, you know, if you have friends or family members that you notice that, I'll use an example. My grandmother had a friend, Miss Mary. Miss Mary was always put together, always, had her hair done once a week, always went to church, was just pristine. Now, if I'm just using her as an example, if all of a sudden we notice that Miss Mary wasn't getting cleaned up, had her hair in a disarray, and this just started progressively happening, and noticing body odor, things like that. And she was actually great at balancing her checkbook. She kept all of her money written down. Things like that. That's a big red flag if you notice that somebody that has never, ever done anything like that, and then all of a sudden their behavior is changing. They're not thinking about their hygiene. They decide to walk to the grocery store that's 5 miles, because they forgot where they put their keys to the car. These are things that you want to be worried about. These are things that you want to look out for in yourself and for friends and family members, because these are big red flags. And again, not eating. Nutrition is one of them as well. So if you see that they always took care of themselves, they always had lunch, they always had dinner, and they're forgetting to eat, these are red flags. These are not normal. These are signs of dementia. So again, if you or someone you love, you notice any of these signs or symptoms of dementia, it's important to talk to your doctor right away. It could be caused by a specific condition that warrants immediate treatment. So the sooner you notify your doctor, the better. And I also want to add into that a lot of times you have to look at the circumstances too. So there are a lot of things that present as signs of dementia. And I'm going to say more on the forgetting things side of it. But you also have to look at, are you dealing with a very stressful situation? We had in one of these classes that I was in person with, I had a gentleman that his spouse had passed away. And they had been married, 50 years. And he was starting to forget where he was putting his glasses, or he was forgetting little things. But she had just passed away like 6 months ago. And I mean, this was his partner, like his life partner. So he was grieving. he was still grieving. He was stressed over that loss. And that can cause you to have a brain fog, what I call a brain fog as well. So you have to look at everything. So that's why we say talk to a doctor, be forthcoming with the information. Like, has anything changed? Do you have some stressor that you may not have had before that could be causing this? Are you getting enough sleep? There's a lot of things that can affect your brain health. So, just keep in mind that you may have some of these symptoms and be like, uh-oh, I might have dementia, but also look at all of the things that are happening around you before you get too concerned about it. Just make sure that you don't have any of these external stressors or internal stressors that could have caused this as well. Next slide. Now, keeping your brain healthy. We're going to have a couple tips on that. So the next several minutes, we'll discuss the following strategies. I'm excited because we have a new slide in here, which is the medication adherence. And then we have engaging in brain training activities, getting plenty of physical activity, eating brain-friendly foods, getting enough sleep, and connecting with others. Next slide. Okay, so this is the one that I'm super excited about. This is actually a study that was done by Humana, their research team. So it was in a recent study conducted by Humana Healthcare Research that there's an increased risk of cognitive decline, was identified among people with chronic illnesses such as type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol who didn't take their medication as prescribed, which is what we call medication adherence. So it's taking your medicine regularly as prescribed is that medication adherence. Now, medication adherence can help you manage your conditions and reduce the risk of complications. Now, again, for those people that have diabetes, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol, in that new research, it showed that increasing the days of missed medication was related to a higher risk of Alzheimer's disease, dementia, and other cognitive decline related conditions. So just to me, this was astronomical, the numbers here. But the examples were people who regularly missed doses had 27% to 148% increased risk of Alzheimer's disease. And then 33% to 105% increased risk of dementia. So, I mean, who knew not taking your medications on a regular schedule or missing your medications can cause you to have dementia or Alzheimer's as well. So, I mean, that's a main thing. Like if you're bad about taking your pills, that's something to keep in mind. So there's tips to do that. You can have, digital health related applications, maybe have a little reminder on your phone, plastic pillbox organizers, or dispensing systems, medication placement or pairing with a daily routine. So, that's why it has a little toothbrush, maybe every night, right? Or in the morning when you're getting ready to brush your teeth, if you have to take pills twice a day, have them right there next to your toothbrush. So that way you can remember to take them as I brush my teeth every day. I need to take my pills, take them each time. Alarms to take medications at the same time daily, auto refill program so you don't run out of your pills. And then you also ordering a bigger supply. Instead of getting the 30-day supply, go with that 90-day supply. So that's something that, you want to keep in mind. And I have one of our people said, their mom experienced that with that non-Medicare adherence, that it leads to vascular dementia. So again, case in point, thank you for, mentioning that as well. But exactly, that's what we're talking about here, that could cause you to have those issues. Now, the next thing we have is training your brain. According to the Alzheimer's Association, and this was one of our questions that somebody had asked ahead of the time, like why or how to do games or what kind of helps here. But challenging your mind may have short and long-term benefits for your brain, helping you reduce your risk of dementia and cognitive decline. Now, one way to train your brain is by doing brain-building puzzles, like crossword puzzles, Sudoku puzzles, jigsaw puzzles, brain teasers. Don't limit yourself to just one category. Different parts of your brain are trained depending on the type of puzzle that you do. So there may be something that stimulates your vision or stimulates this like problem solving skills. There's just different parts of our brain that when we're doing things that it kind of scratches that itch basically. So learning new information may help your brain stay stronger too. You want to get in the habit of learning new things like games, recipes, driving route, musical instruments, foreign languages. Similarly, taking a class that's unfamiliar to you but still interesting. One of the other consumer engagement professionals, it happened during the pandemic, but what she did, this was a new thing for her. One of the classes that she did was built, and it was something she had never done, doing a butterfly garden. And so she taught a class on doing a butterfly garden. And it was something where she actually had to lay it out. That's not something she's ever done before, but laid it out and then implemented how to do it, went ahead and did that. Now she has this beautiful butterfly garden that she can enjoy, but it was something an activity that she had to figure out how to do. So it's good to try to challenge yourself within your abilities to do something new. And I say that because if any of you have ever seen me do this class live, I joke about I'm one of those people that was raised that in my mind I can do anything. Like if I wanted to be a rocket scientist, I could be a rocket scientist. However, I'm aware that my body has certain limitations. So, you see those people that pull the trucks with their teeth by the chain. Do I think I could do that? Maybe, but my body says no. So there's certain things that I'm not going to try to push myself to do because it would frustrate me. So just try new things that challenge you enough, but won't make it where you're just like, forget it. You want to get into those habits of doing new things. Now, you can also try to take on a new project that involves designing and planning, like that butterfly garden, and that could be making a quilt or planting a vegetable garden. Even getting in the habit of doing things differently can also help your brain, like trying, driving to the grocery store a different way, or having something at a restaurant that you've never tried before. It might have that different taste, stimulates your brain a different way. So those are things that you want to try out as well. And a final important tip to consider is if your brain training activity is too easy for you, it will quickly become boring. So that's why we say you want to challenge yourself, do something that doesn't, you're just like, okay, you've always quilted, let's start quilting another quilt. You already know how to do that. Maybe there's a different pattern in the quilting that you have never done that you can try to learn how to do that different pattern. And that could be something that's a little bit challenging, but still within the realm of your knowledge base. But you also, if you continue to do something that you've already mastered, your brain no longer gets challenged. And as I said, if the activity is too hard, it can become frustrating. So the best activities will vary from person to person, but you should find them challenging, not too easy, but also not impossible. So you want to do something that's realistic for you, and go from there. Now, exercise, we all know staying physically active is good for us. Exercise has many benefits. It's thought to be good for your heart, your waistline, your ability to stay independent as you age. It probably won't come as a surprise to hear that it also benefits for your brain, I'm like, yeah, because we're having circulation in our brain, keeping the blood flowing properly, helps from preventing strokes, things of that nature. So yes, it is good to stay active. According to the Alzheimer's Association, exercise may play a role in decreasing the risk of age-related cognitive decline. It also increases blood flow to the brain. So again, helps reduce the risk of strokes as well, which can cause you to have memory function decline. Now, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommends aiming to get about 30 minutes of moderate physical activity most days of the week, or 150 minutes per week. If you're still getting out there cutting your own grass, if you have a garden, working in your garden, planting those vegetables, things like that, that is still being physically active. It doesn't mean that you have to go to the gym and, swim 30 laps or go biking. Just keep moving, whatever you can do. There's a lot of, with Humana, we have a lot of silver sneakers classes and stuff where it's chair exercises. So if you have limitations, just do as much activity as you can that you're physically able to. And again, with this, you always want to talk to your doctor. Don't try to do an Ironman and you've never ran, or biked or anything. See what will fit for you. You may have joint issues or something like that where they recommend swimming. There's certain things that are better for us. And again, this is something that I joke about with my people, that you may have, we're all different makes and models. We're like cars. So one car might need premium gas, another needs unleaded. That's how all of us are. We are all different in our makeup and may need different things. Some of us may have high cholesterol. Some of us may have high blood pressure. So there's not one size fits all in this. You have to see what's best for your body. Now, as I said, before beginning any exercise program, always talk to your doctor first. They may have those specific recommendations for you. So again, joint issues, arthritis, things like that, where, you have pains, they'll most likely say water aerobics because that doesn't put as much pressure on your body. So they'll recommend what's best for you. Next slide. All right, so this was one of the questions I know for sure was eating, what kind of foods do you recommend? So eating brain-friendly foods. Now, according to the Alzheimer's Association, a diet that is low in fat and high in fruit and vegetable intake is generally healthiest for the brain and the body. The Alzheimer's Association says that following a Mediterranean diet can help reduce heart disease and may reduce the risk of dementia. Now, it's based on the eating patterns that are typically found in the areas bordering the Mediterranean Sea. And here's what you need to know about the Mediterranean diet. It focuses on fresh fruits and vegetables, nuts and whole grains. It emphasizes the use of healthy fats instead of unhealthy fats, like olive oil in place of butter. It limits red meat, salt, butter, and margarine. It encourages followers to eat fish and poultry at least 2 times per week. And also another thing to mention, this is very similar to this as well. And when I was looking up for that question too, because I knew it covered the Mediterranean diet, but I wanted to see what else was a recommendation, also is the DASH diet. I don't know if you've ever heard of the DASH diet. Very similar to the Mediterranean diet, but it works on lower sodium. So it, again, follows along with this, but it reduces the sodium. So if you need to be on a reduced sodium diet, that would be a good option as well. And they have on both of these, like they're easy to find information. If you Google or if you, use Amazon, you can always get cookbooks. Trust me, I know because I have them. My doctor recommended the Mediterranean diet for me as well, just because of cholesterol. So it's good for if you have high cholesterol. So that helps with you. Yes. And so Patty put in here, the DASH diet it's a low sodium option. So yes, it's, again, very similar to the Mediterranean diet. It is just the low sodium option of that. So keep that in mind if you're working on foods to eat for your brain health. These are the ones we want to look at. Next slide. Now, according to the Alzheimer's Association, remaining socially active may help support brain health and possibly delay the onset of dementia. It may also reduce your risk of depression. So when we have the most basic of interactions with people, it stimulates our brain. So, we're not all extroverts. Some of us are introverted. So it may not be comfortable for you to get out and talk to a whole bunch of people or be in clubs or things like that if you're introverted. If that is something that you fight with where you're not like a social butterfly, it's fine. Just try doing something like as you're going through the grocery store, talk to the lady or gentleman at the cash register, ask them how their day's going. Most of the time, they're not going to have people doing that to them anyways, because people are in a rush. don't have any conversations. So just have like, basic, hey, how are you doing? How's your day going? It's pretty outside. It helps you, it helps them because they're actually having somebody be civil to them. So, I mean, that's a win-win. If you are a social butterfly, you can always, there's book clubs, there's, joining, if this could be like a win-win, joining like a Yahtzee club or some kind of club that does cards, because that's another thing where you're playing a brain game and you're being social because you're with other people while you're doing it. So that's, kind of multitasking there, getting both benefits. Giving a friend a call. So again, if you're not somebody that wants to get out in a big group, you kind of keep to yourself, just call one of your friends, have like a little weekly follow-up or a couple days a week check-in. One of my best friends, every day she calls her mother, 8 o'clock. That's their routine. She checks on her, and it could be a 5-minute call, but they just are like, hey, just touching base, just seeing how you're doing. So just reaching out to somebody. Also taking a class. You may want to, you could do one of those if you're into wine, Pinot and paint, something like that. There are different ways that you can check, like find other people to do activities with, or do an activity where you're not necessarily having to socialize with a big group, but you can be with people. And then I always joke about this because I feel like it's another multitask win-win. If you're an animal lover, but you can't have a pet, or even if you can have a pet, but you're just wanting to get out of the house, volunteer at the Humane Society or at one of the animal shelters where you go and walk a dog. That way you're getting exercise. I always feel like you have a listener that's not going to talk back. So you can talk to that dog the whole time you're walking if you have something you want to get off your chest, and they're just going to be wagging their tail and happy as can be about going out and being outside, not being in that cage for the day. So, I mean, these are other ways that you can help that help you, but also help others. So, it just gets you out there, meeting somebody for coffee, all kinds of different ways of socializing. But, just putting yourself out there a little bit, but you don't have to, be that social butterfly, but still have those social interactions wherever you can fit them in, because that helps keep your brain healthy as well. So you just want to try doing those activities as much as possible, and this can be something small, again, like going to the store and chatting with the cashier. Just set a goal to do one activity each day that allows you to talk to other people. All right. And then we have getting enough sleep. Now, your brain needs regular, high quality sleep to function at its best. Not getting enough sleep can leave you feeling irritable, unenergized, and it can make it harder to think clearly, solve problems, and recall memories, according to the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke. I mean, think about it. Have you ever, like, recalling back to the times when you had newborn babies and things like that, and you had limited sleep, and you're like, I can't think, I can't function. These are things like it was because you had a reduced amount of sleep. So if you're not getting what your body needs. And I say that because most people think you have to have 8 hours of sleep, but there's actual sleep studies where they've done tests where it's like, okay, if I go to bed at this time every day at night, so say 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, don't set an alarm. What time does my body naturally wake up? So you may not require as much sleep, or you might require more than the 8 hours. So that's something also you can kind of test out to find what does your body require. But you want to get what your body requires, because again, if you don't, that can cause you to be in that brain fog, not being able to think clearly, not being able to problem solve. Now, sleep may feel fleeting as we get older. You may notice it takes a longer time to fall asleep or go back to sleep after waking up. That's me. It's like I get up to go to the bathroom, and then I start thinking about the things that I have to do the next day, and it's like, just shut off. I want to go back to sleep. But we have those issues. So, or you'll wake up more often throughout the night. So those are things that happens to us normally as we get older. So you want to try to stick to a schedule to get your body on a routine. This means, going to bed at the same time each night, waking up at the same time each morning. It can also help to develop bedtime rituals. Now, these are things you do every night before bed to help yourself unwind and give your body the message that it's time for sleep. So I'll give you my example, which sometimes I'm still trying to get into that habit, but my thing each night when I go to bed is I have like my hand cream. I've already washed my face, brushed my teeth, all of that. But right before, as I get into bed, I have my hand cream and I want to put my lotion on my hands and my arms. And that's kind of like my little relaxing thing, and put some moisturizer on my face before I go to bed. I have that sitting right next to the bed because if not, I won't do it. So I can see it as I'm getting in bed to remind myself to do it. But that is a cue to my body that, okay, these are her wind down things. Another thing is, we all know they say don't have and some people, I'm going to say this, some people are going to say, well, I watch a TV at bed all the time. And if that works for you, that works for you. But typically it's not recommended to watch TV while you're in bed or be on your phone messing with the games, because you're keeping your brain active. And also that artificial light on your phone and from the TV makes your brain, it's not telling it, hey, it's bedtime. So it makes it harder, you know. So saying watching your TV or using your computer, those are not good pre-bedtime activities. Again, artificial light exposure can trick your body into thinking it's not time to sleep. Examples would be taking a warm bath or shower, maybe meditating or praying, listening to soft music or reading in low light. Those are things that we recommend, before you go to bed. I was reading one of our people, let's see. Okay, so one of our people are saying on the DASH diet, it focuses more on decreased processed foods and spices based in salt, like the garlic powder preferred over garlic salt, etc. I do know that I did do the DASH diet. When I was comparing it, I thought it was similar. It felt similar because it did have a lot of, like, I didn't get red meat as much either, and I did have more seafood and things like that. But it did have, like, it did change up on our spices as well. All right, sorry about that. I was like, let me add that in there to make sure I don't miss anything. And then also another thing is, if you need to take a nap, they recommend to do that right away. Naps can help you recharge, but they can also interrupt your natural sleep rhythm and lead to insomnia. So naps should only last about 15 to 45 minutes, and it's best to take them in the early afternoon. I mean, if you're taking a nap at 8 o'clock and your bedtime's 9, that's probably going to throw off your sleep rhythm. So you don't want to, take that late nap in the day, because that affects your sleep. All right, next slide. Now, using memory aids. So remember, some memory loss is common as you age. There are a few things to help you make the most of the memory you have left. First, keep a to-do list that documents your priorities. Keep your list in a place where you'll see it often and easily, and mark off items as you complete them. Similarly, use a calendar. You can keep a paper electronic calendar, but try to keep only try to keep only one that it counts for. So don't have multiple calendars that you're keeping everything. Have one that has all of your important dates or your appointments. Now, be sure to check it a couple of times throughout the day. And for some things, creating a routine can help ensure you don't forget. So similar to what I was saying before, is I have my lotion, my hand lotion and my face cream next to the bed, so that way I don't forget to do it. So I've set that routine in place, so I make sure I do those items each night. But also you want to, let me go back to taking the routine. So again, going back to taking your medicines at the same time each day. So like while you're eating breakfast or before bed, so you don't forget. These routines can help us. But we also want to say, be patient with yourself. Rushing creates stress. And as we'll learn in a minute, stress doesn't help your brain health either. You want to give yourself plenty of time to learn new things or recall old memories. Staying organized by putting everything in its place. So if you always put your car keys in the same place, you're less likely to forget where they are. I will say that had been one of my problems, like At my house, I had as you walked in the door, right there by the jacket closet, there was a little hook. That's where my keys were supposed to go because I would misplace my keys. The problem is when they would be lost is the time that I was carrying in groceries or had my hands full. So I would have the groceries, the dogs are running at me, I'm carrying my purse, I've got my keys in my hand, I'm just trying to get in the door. And that's when I would normally misplace my keys. Most of the time they were on the kitchen counter or I dropped them into my purse because I was just trying to get a hand free to, maintain the animals, which I have two small dogs. They're not big dogs, but still they're like right at you when you get in. But what I did do was I ended up buying a little thing from Brookstone where you could put it on your key and there was a I don't know, basically like a little thing that transmitted, almost like a little whistler, but it sat there on my media console. So if I did misplace my keys, I could push that button and it would sound off my keys. So I could locate where they were, which again, typically they were in my purse or on the counter if I didn't stick them where they were supposed to be. But having those little routines or having those little helpers help you, keep from losing items. It's just like your glasses. If you think that you're like, oh, I always misplace my glasses. Well, at nighttime, just say, okay, when I'm going to bed, I'm going to set them right here on my nightstand or they're right here near my toothbrush. So when I get up in the morning, this is where they're going to be, having a set location. So to try to keep your items, you don't want to forget where you put them in place, where you're most likely to look for them. So again, that's why I said I look for my glasses in the bathroom because I take them off when I'm washing my face. That's where they're going to be. Because once I'm in bed, I'm not looking at anything far away that I need. So that's what works best for me. Also, get creative when learning new things and making new memories. If you're trying to learn a new name, use association. So, for example, if you want to remember the name Marilyn, picture Marilyn Monroe in your head. There's just certain ways that you can kind of have those brain games. It goes back to, when we were in school and the teacher had like little ways of remembering. So, like music teachers, every good boy does fine. Those are the letters for your piano keys, for the one keys, and then the other ones were face. That's how they had you kind of remember things, is just putting each letter to remember something. So that helps our brain do ways of checking. Also, let's see, I'm trying to think. Basically, on the memory aids, that pretty much covers it. Just creating a routine, getting creative. So, all right, next slide. Okay, so now we're going to review. So let's see here. So on my review, your brain is the body's control center. So all human activity revolves around it. It's responsible for your thoughts, feelings, memories, emotions, and behavior. However, your brain does undergo some changes as you age. Some are normal, but some aren't. So if you or a loved one is experiencing any of the signs of dementia we talked about, it's important to talk to a healthcare provider. Again, I want to stress, make sure that you look at all circumstances surrounding it. So, because I don't want people to like go away from this and be like, oh my goodness, I have these things. Again, think about what has been going on around you. How do you have stressors that are affecting you? Are you a caregiver right now to somebody that's ailing? Have you just had somebody pass away in your family? Are there things that could cause you to be distracted, basically, that will cause you to forget things? Because again, those stresses can affect you as well. So just keep that in mind before you get too concerned. But I mean, if you don't have anything else going on, or you have friends and family that you're seeing these things happening and there's no extenuating circumstances, you might want to keep an eye on it and be like, okay, we might need to, talk to a healthcare provider about that. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, let's see. Now, my next couple slides are actually going to be the resources. So if anybody has any questions for me, feel free to put them in the chat box here. I also want to, let's see if Patty can put this in there. if anybody has any follow-up questions, I did have somebody that had asked about cognitive decline on MS. That was asked prior. There was a handout that I found that was actually from the multiple sclerosis that had, like, they had a whole brochure on that. So I did save that. I don't know if that was sent out to you, but if you need that information, I can send that to you. Another question was about the effects of CBD with Alzheimer's. There was research on that. Basically, what I read on that research was, from what I gather, I read this like the other week, but I want to say that it was in high doses, like doses that we wouldn't be able to get, that there might be some difference. Now on vitamins, okay, that was something else I looked up too. So I have a link on that. Actually, if you have like more detailed questions on the vitamins, send me the email, because I have a link for that. But basically there was a study done by Harvard where they were saying most of them are not FDA approved. There's not really anything that was quote unquote recommended. So that might, on supplements, they didn't have anything that they were really showing for that. I will say this, just from in research on my own and discussions with other people, if you're vitamin D deficient, which I forgot to mention earlier, that can also cause you to have that brain fog or not be crisp and clear. And a lot of us now are more, I know they're testing now most of the time when we go to the doctor to see what our vitamin D levels are. I hear that from people all the time, that we're deficient in vitamin D. So that may be something where you spend an extra 10 or 15 minutes outside each day to get a little bit of sun, or take some vitamin D if you're noticing that you're not feeling clear, having clarity. So that would be my recommendation. Check to see what your vitamin D levels are, because a lot of us are trying to stay out of the sun because it's not safe, but we also still need that as well to grow and keep our mind going. Oh, okay. So I had one question. What's the best way to stop blocking on a name? That was on the Marilyn Monroe. So if you like do an association, so if your friend's name is Marilyn, associate her with, Marilyn Monroe, something that, stays ingrained in our brain. Like who forgets Marilyn Monroe? So, every time, like Marilyn Monroe, and then you can kind of have that in your brain. One of my friends, her mother, what she does is to remember her kids' birthdays, their models, like car model numbers. So she's like, I have a 1976 model and a 1978. So I'm like, that's a good way. So she knows what year they were born. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure she remembers the date, but that's how she remembers the year, is what model number they are. So there's having those little associations to remember things, kind of helps it, like things that tie it to. Let's see. Do I have any more questions here?
I didn't see any more, but and Lisa, before I go on, thank you so much for this. This was very informative. And I'm a psychology major, so I was loving seeing the brain and all the different parts of the brain. But I think more importantly, you're talking about the difference between the real red flags and just a 1 or 2 time event. And
Yes.
so that we can remember that. But someone has posed a question about the relationship between Alzheimer's and dementia. So if you could talk about that just a tiny tad.
Ooh.
Well,
Okay.
I know it's all in the spectrum, I think. Yeah.
Right. I feel like, well, honestly, I feel like dementia is like the stepping stones going into Alzheimer's, because typically you have those beginning symptoms of decline, and Alzheimer's is full blown. I mean, the most experience I have with Alzheimer's was my grandmother. She started out with dementia in her 70s. She lived to be 94. But by the time, I would say, her 80s, she was in full blown dementia. And basically, my
Okay.
mother tried to take care of her at home because it had gotten where and I have heard that too, that Alzheimer's is hereditary, and that would make sense because her sisters both ended up having Alzheimer's. I don't know if her brother had passed away before that ever happened, but it was in the family. You've seen that going through the
Mm-hmm.
line. Um, so if you do have that in the family, I'm like, I would by all means try to do everything that you can to slow that process down, eating the right diet, trying to stay active, trying to do those brain games, just doing everything that you can and doing as much research as possible. Because, I mean, there's all kinds of things. I read somewhere that having sodas with the aspartame in it, that can cause, dementia and Alzheimer's. And I'm like, great. I drink
Right.
diet sodas all the time. So
Right.
it's a lot of research on what to avoid. Um, but I feel like it's just dementia is that stepping stone, and then you just go into the full blown is that's it. At the Alzheimer's, it's not just little things. At that point, I always refer it back to like you're going back to the beginning, because I felt like my grandmother, she would ask where her mother was. It's like you're
Mm-hmm.
you're going back to being a kid again because you
Mm-hmm.
don't have all of those memories. But there was a lot. I actually sat in on a class. I think it was with the Alzheimer's Association at one of the other meetings. And recommendations for people were, if you have a family member that it does have Alzheimer's, is having, and we did this with my grandmother, but having like a vision board that has the pictures of
Mm-hmm.
the family members,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to understand, yes, it's frustrating when they ask you the same question over and over again, but they can't help that. So you really have to have some patience, and just understand that they're not trying to frustrate you, that this is who they are now, and you just have to just roll with it. Don't ask them direct questions, because that can frustrate them because they don't know the answers. It's just there's a lot of little ins and outs on that. So, but there's more
Yeah.
research on the Alzheimer's through the Alzheimer's Association.
Right. And we will deal with that in one of our future webinars. But a couple of people have written in there that they understand that Alzheimer's is one diagnosis under the umbrella of dementia. And I think that's what you were talking about. The dementia occurred and then it eventually ended up with full-blown Alzheimer's. And you are so right on that. So another question that came up in earlier as well as in the chat, does Prevagen really help? That drug they recommend on TV?
I don't know, because I was looking that up, and I was seeing that it was a supplement, and it goes back to that study. Um, Email me and I will send you the link
Yeah.
for that, because it's Deborah. So Deborah, if you email me at that Humana webinar 3 at humana.com, there's a whole study from Harvard that I pulled up on the supplements. So I can send you that link to that as well to get more information. I'm like, I don't want to misspeak. I don't know anything
Yeah.
about the Prevagen. I just have what I've tried to find the answers for.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I have another question here. Have you heard of pseudo dementia?
No, I
This
have not.
this is where depression mimics dementia.
Huh.
Oh, something. Yeah.
I have not heard of that, but that would make sense, because
Yeah.
just saying, like, I could see that. Like,
Yeah.
if you are depressed, sometimes it's the same thing. You have that brain fog
Right.
where you can't think. It goes back to those extenuating circumstances that are causing the stressors. So
Yes.
if you are depressed, going through depression, you're not thinking clearly. So
Right.
that could present as depression, as dementia as well. So that's something
Yeah.
that you would have to talk to a doctor about and just say, hey, this is what's happening. I'm noticing this with it, you know, and they can go through the best course of action to help you with that.
Yeah. Great. Someone put in the chat, vitamin D is less expensive. So
Yes, yes, absolutely. So again, I highly would recommend, have your vitamin D levels checked out. if you need to take vitamin D, that might help as well with having that clarity if you're noticing a little bit that you're off, because that is something that we need.
Yes. And Lolita mentioned that a doctor stopped her spouse from taking Prevagen because there has just not been enough research. So I think your article, Lisa, might be of interest to more than one. So if you don't mind sending that to us as well, we can stick it in the follow-up
Okay.
in case people are interested, since that seemed to have a few questions around that. And it is now 1:25, so we could take maybe one more question. Let me see if there's anything in the great webinar we got.
All
So
right.
that was good. And we really do appreciate the questions. I think for the most part, most of them were answered. So Lisa, again, we thank you for your awesome presentation. And we can be here all day talking about the brain because it's such, you know, it's just so much to the brain that we don't even understand how it really all works together for the good and for other things that happen with our bodies. But right now, we thank everyone for all the questions and for your participation today. And if you have a comment or think about something later, Lisa has given us an opportunity to email her at Humana webinar3@humana.com. So please remember that. If you do not, please remember to email me at Daryl, DERYL, at NCRGEA.com, and I will get your question to Lisa so that she can answer it. And also, we will be sending out a survey, so don't forget to complete that survey that we'll be sending to you later today. And again, it's quick and easy to complete, and we need them back by Monday. We've had great success with getting our surveys back. It's really helped us to keep these webinars going and to make sure that we're giving you what you want. And before we leave, we want to let you know about our Lunch and Learn webinar, which will be held, the next one, which will be held on May 8th from 12:30 to 1:30. And guess what? It is focusing on caregiving. And part of the discussion will be about caregiving for dementia patients. And our presenter will be Betsy Barton from Transitions Life Care. So please be sure and join us next month on May 8th, 12:30 to 1:30. And we will send the information to you so you can begin registering for that. Also, please watch for information via your email regarding the Public Service Appreciation Day on May 1st from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Halifax Mall in Raleigh, which is right next to, on the same side of the street as the Legislative Building there. More information will be coming out, so watch your announcements on that. And you may have an opportunity to visit with your legislator rather, depending on that person's schedule. So more to come on that, including the talking points in case you are able to visit with your legislator that day. Lisa, did you have any final words? We've got 2 minutes. Oh, I
I
see there are a
think
bunch
I'm
of
all.
questions that came up in the, let me see if there's anything real quick as you're talking.
Oh, I was gonna say I'm all good to go. Thank you so much, everybody, for taking time. Again, if you have a question that wasn't answered or you want some of the research that I found, just email me at that Humana webinar3@humana.com, and I'll be happy to send over any research that I found. And also the last 2 pages of the presentation have the links that reference all of the research that was done to put this presentation together.
Awesome. Thank you. And then you can tell me whether or not watching Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy every night is helpful. But anyway, thank you all again for joining us. And as always, the association stands ready to assist you in your retirement. So any questions, any comments, you can please feel free to reach out to us. And Lisa, can't thank you enough. This was an awesome presentation. So we appreciate all of you, and everyone have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.